What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Engage 8 podcast. I am your host, Zach, with my two co hosts, Josh and Mike. We got a busy schedule today, so we're just going to get right into it. We're going to recap all 15 games of week 8, aside from Monday Night Football. We'll get to that next episode. So, Josh, you want to get us started?
Yeah, let's go. Starting off with Thursday Night Football, the Bills escape and they beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at home. The Bills defense played pretty solid throughout. The offense just was doing, at some point in this game, they were just doing whatever they could to make this game interesting. The Bills end up not covering the spread of 8.5. The Bucks' last drive was just ridiculous. Their last real drive, not at the end of the game, but their last scoring drive it was something like 17 plays, 80 yards or something ridiculous. Just every fourth down, the Bills would get a stop and then there'd be a flag. They get a free set. So yeah, the Bills kind of just seem like a team that's going to just hang in there and just play a lot of tight games, maybe, even though early on they were blowing teams out after that Jets game. And the injuries have kind of caught up to them. They've regressed a little bit. Josh Allen only having one turnover was huge for keeping them in this game. If he would have had two, I'm not sure they won this game. And that's not even including the Hail Mary that if Chris Godwin was ready for, the Bills easily could have lost this game. And yeah, the Bills are just playing it close with these bad teams.
Yeah, I mean, the one Josh Allen interception was it was on like a screen pass or something where it just kind of got popped up into the air on accident. But I think the Bills were in control of this game from the start, to be honest. And I think this just goes to show that the Baker Mayfield experience, the whole oh wow, is Baker really back? Has he found a home? Has he found a home in Tampa? I think the whole experience it's kind of over with. He didn't have that great of a game. He was missing receivers by large margins of distance on wide open throws at times, and they continue to have very little run game surrounding him, so that's not helping at all either. Though Rashad White did have an Alvin Kamara-esque performance with 7 catches for 70 yards. But like you said, Josh, if Josh Allen could just take care of the ball, like we've been talking about on this pod for weeks on weeks, this Bills team can go really far. And it's really unfortunate that they have so many injuries on the defensive side of the ball because they could really hold a lot of teams to under 20 points and just lock teams down, especially if they were healthy.
Yeah, definitely. Their defense, it's just been riddled with injuries and it's starting to catch up to them. They weren't able to get the statement victory that we were hoping for this week or looking for. But Josh Allen played all right, 334 yards, 2 touchdowns, and the interception, it wasn't really his fault. It was really nice to see them get Kincaid involved. Dawson Knox is on IR now. Kincaid had his great game. Shakir had a great game. Diggs and Davis, all of the pass catchers really had a good game for the Bills. And they were able to get off to a good start this week. We hadn't seen them do that in recent weeks, and it's really hurted them. They've turned the ball over on their first possession recently, and they didn't do that this week. They played all right, and just got the lead early. Bucks tried to come back. They had a chance on the Hail Mary. They didn't get it. I thought Baker played all right. No turnovers. He still has no running game to help him. He didn't miss throws, but you got to really expect that from him. Rashad White led the team in receptions. Mike Evans was really shut down most of the night. He had the touchdown late to keep the Bills in the game, or the Bucks in the game. And they had the chance to have Mary. They didn't get it. Big win for the Bills to try to start, I guess, now keep up with the Dolphins.
Yep. Moving on here to the first game on Sunday. Texans at Panthers. Bryce Young gets his first win. The Panthers get their first win of the season and tie themselves with the Cardinals now for best odds at the number 1 overall pick. The Bears now currently, I think as it stands, would be sitting at 2-5. So we can hopefully get away from the 1-2 talk. At least I would like to. The Panthers overall, though, still do struggle to run the ball against this Texans defense. The Panthers defense kept them in it despite all the injuries they've had all season, all the trade rumors for Brian Burns and whatnot on their team. And the offense did just enough in this game. This game was what did it finish 15-13 or something like that off the Eddie Pinheiro had to kick like 6 game winners to win this one, but they kept throwing flags on them. But overall, they get this win. Big for Bryce Young's morale. Now he gets to feel what it feels like to get a win in this league. And I think you can build on that. And I don't see this team ending up being like 1-16. They're going to collect a couple more wins. You just got to get that first one. And once you get over that hump, then you're going to stumble your way into some wins and build that confidence for young quarterback. CJ Stroud still doesn't throw a pick this game. So good for him. He didn't make any mistakes. Also wasn't super special on offense, so against a Panthers defense that hasn't been phenomenal. So maybe a step back from Stroud, a step forward from Bryce Young, and Panthers get their first win.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it compared to last year, the Lions also started 1-6, and the Panthers, they are starting 1-6. So maybe we're seeing the birth of a super team. Now I'm playing, but Bryce Young, he didn't look bad. He looked pretty solid, especially given the lack of a run game. We talked about it a bunch. And the Texans, on the other hand, their rookie quarterback CJ Stroud, he didn't make mistakes, but he didn't make any wild throws either. So this game was kind of just, I didn't see too much of it, I'm gonna be honest, but from what I did see, there was really no standout players. It was kind of just two iffy teams with a little bit of talent on either side of the ball, kind of just going at it. And the Panthers were able to pull out a victory.
Yeah, Panthers get their first win of the season. Bryce Young beats CJ Stroud in the top three pick battle, I guess. He beat number 2 and number 3. Big win for Panthers fans to just finally see one. They don't have their pick, so they're rooting for wins every week. Adam Thielen was praising Bryce Young after the game, said he stayed calm the whole game, was calm on the game-winning drive. Adam Thielen continues to be great this season. Him being this good is just big for the Panthers team. They've really needed him to step up, and he has. He had the big conversion on 4th and 2 where Bryce Young found him for 3 yards to get the first down to keep that game-winning drive alive. But you touched on it, Josh. They still have no running game. They really need to find it. Miles Sanders only had 2 carries and didn't have any yards from him. And on the other side, CJ Stroud, he played all right, 140 yards. He had a rushing touchdown, no turnovers, but really no receiver was able to get going. They weren't able to find it. Noah Brown led them in receptions with 3 catches for 57 yards. Texans just couldn't really get anything going. And it's a big win for the Panthers to get that first one.
Yep. Moving on here to Rams at Cowboys. I couldn't have been more wrong about this one. I decided to take my chance with the Rams and bet on that great offense against a little bit of a beat up secondary, and that did not happen at all. This game was over before it started. The Cowboys enforced their will on defense and special teams, and they just dominated the game. When your defense and special teams can create a ton of points and your offense doesn't have to be spectacular, offense was great today for the Cowboys, but they didn't have to be. The defense and their special teams put them in a position to win that game from the jump, and there wasn't much that their offense could have done to not let that happen. Stafford got hurt and was sacked 9 times today, which is absolutely brutal. And just there's not much you could do no matter what weapons you have when you're in that situation. Stafford was in today. Great day, just a great day for the Cowboys offense as a whole. Dak gets back on track. CeeDee Lamb has probably his best game of the season as well. And this is a big win for the Cowboys, sitting at 5-2 now. There was a time they lost a couple games. They lost that Cardinals game to it that they shouldn't have lost, and a couple weeks by. Then they got pounded by the Niners on Sunday Night Football. And now they're sitting at a point where their offense has looked better the past couple weeks. They've kind of figured it out after the bye, and they're looking good. And like I said, as long as this defense is creating points, this Cowboys team can go really, really far.
Yeah, this is the type of game where, like you mentioned, Josh, Stafford sacked 9 times. That happens in a game where when you go down big, the defense doesn't have to guess at pass or run anymore in those 3rd and medium, 3rd and short sometimes. So they can just pin their ears back, and guys like Micah Parsons especially can just go at the quarterback without really any consequence. And especially a D-line like the Cowboys, we've seen it all year. They're phenomenal. And looking back on offense, like you said, Josh, CeeDee Lamb, he was phenomenal today. This was really, like you said, his best game of the year. One of many receivers who had a phenomenal game and a 2-touchdown day as well. So that's really impressive. Brandon Cooks found the end zone, and Jake Ferguson had a nice grab on a really, really nice over-the-top throw from Dak Prescott, which I thought was quite impressive given what I think of Dak as a whole. But yeah, the Rams, they just went down early. They really had no chance after the first quarter. The Cowboys defense found the end zone once again. Deron Bland, his 3rd pick 6 of the season, which is insane to me. I mean, they got another Trayvon Diggs while Trayvon Diggs is out with an injury. So if this Cowboys defense, like you mentioned, Josh, if this Cowboys defense can play like this every single week, this Cowboys team can go really, really far.
Yeah, but this Cowboys team has been really, really good at home so far this year. They've outscored opponents 111-33 in their 3 home games, and they've now won 11 straight games at home at Jerry World. So they've been great at home. They dominated defensively. CeeDee Lamb definitely had his best game of the year. 12 catches, 2 touchdowns, 158 yards. He was dominant, but the defense was the main story. Deron Bland, like you said, pick six. And the Rams offense, they really couldn't get much going. You said the 9 sacks. Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp really couldn't find much, only 64 yards on 7 catches. And Stafford got hurt, so hopefully the Rams can get him healthy. They need him if they want to continue to find wins. And just a big win for the Cowboys, getting that big divisional matchup next week with the Eagles.
Yeah, I was about to say, you mentioned how the Cowboys have been so good at home, and now they get to go into Philadelphia next week. So that'll be a fun game. Excited to talk about that one on the next episode, but we will keep it moving on here to Vikings at Packers. The big story of this one, as we know, Kirk Cousins tore his Achilles, and that's just absolutely brutal for the Vikings. He will, for obvious reasons, be out the rest of the season. This is a Vikings team who just got back to 500 too, which really sucks because they were in a tough spot to start the season. They battled their way back. They were about to get Justin Jefferson back. Jordan Addison looks great. It looks like they're about to have a great 1-2 punch. And then your starting quarterback tears his Achilles. And that's just, it's really tough to see even, as a division rival, I'd still, you hate to see that for the Vikings. Now this division is even more uncertain of what's going on in 2, 3, 4. You have the Bears, who sometimes look okay, sometimes look horrible. The Packers have rarely looked good, except for when they played against the Bears. And then the Vikings were really bad, and they've worked their way back, and now they lose Kirk. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Vikings still struggled to run the ball today, but that didn't really matter. This Packers team is really, really starting to show us their true colors, especially on the offensive end. They almost get shut out in the first half. They scored 3 points at the end. That would have been the third time in 7 games that they got shut out in the first half, which is really, really bad, especially for an offense and a city that has been known to have great offenses over the years. This Kirk and the Vikings offense were playing really, really well before the injury against the Packers defense that has talent on it and is basically forced to do everything. I mean, you saw the Jair interview a few weeks ago where he was saying how they need to just basically shut out every team to win games with that young offense, and they're not able to do that. You have to wonder where the Vikings really go from here. Do you go and try to bring in a veteran quarterback that wants to play? I don't know. Because you have an offense that has their offensive line has been much better than we all expected this year. We've talked about their weapons. It's a prolific offense. Their defense has overperformed for the most part. I think a veteran quarterback can come in here and maybe make some waves. It'd be funny if we saw maybe some Carson Wentz action.
I'm hearing Ryan Tannehill.
Ryan, maybe.
Especially after the Willis performance today.
Oh, my God. Ryan Tannehill. Just that would be funny.
Wow.
Just a worse version of Jared Goff to throw in the NFC North. But yeah, my takeaways are this really sucks for the Vikings, and the Packers are just a shit team.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, and I think it really starts with the scheme that they're running on offense. I know Aaron Jones is coming back from the hamstring injury, but it feels like all of their productive offense came when Aaron Jones was either a distraction, the focal point, or just a target in the passing game. Whenever they would run play action and Aaron Jones was the target, they would get the defense moving a little bit, and it opened up throwing lanes for Jordan Love. He didn't make a lot of them, but the throws were there. And then they just decided to stop going to him at times. But like you mentioned, Josh, where do the Vikings go from this? They, especially not even just this year, next year and beyond. Because Kirk, I believe his contract is up after this year, and you don't really get to see what he's going to look like anymore. So do you just move on from him if you get a good enough pick to land May or Williams, or if Sanders declares, do you go with him? And then you also have Justin Jefferson to think about, who might not even come back this year. He might just play it safe and go get his contract or whatever. I'm not too savvy on his whole situation aside from the injury part of it. But there's questions with their QB1, wide receiver 1. Addison, I think he's definitely the big loser of this situation, because he was developing some really nice chemistry with Kirk over the last few games with Jefferson being out, and he was playing absolutely phenomenal, if I'm being honest. So it really sucks to see a receiver who has shown a lot of promise just start to lose opportunities because of the situation around him. Somewhat similar to Garrett Wilson up in New York.
Yeah, this injury is just killer for Kirk Cousins. Love him. I've been watching him for a long time. He's never missed a game except for he's never seen to injury. The only game he has missed is because of COVID, and he's been playing great this year. Really, he's had to win them the games, and last year he was incredible too. Contract year, looking to get another bag possibly, and his injury just kills that. Um, Jaron Hall is going to be their quarterback most likely for the rest of the year, the rookie from BYU. They're going to have to bring someone else in. I don't know who that'll be. One big takeaway from this for me is that this makes the Lions, if it wasn't already an easy NFC North, it makes it almost too easy for them. I hope it doesn't make it lackluster for them. I guess we'll talk about that later, but uh, Jordan Addison played great, 7 catches, 82 yards and a touchdown. TJ Hawkinson played great. Kirk Cousins, he's really developed a connection with both of those guys. TJ Hawkinson last year, but Jordan Addison just recently. Just derails the Viking season. They were finally getting back on track. But for the Packers, just if something doesn't change soon, they're going to have to start looking for a quarterback in a draft next year. And right now, they're in a very good position to do that. Again, they weren't able to develop a running game. Aaron Jones only had 29 yards. AJ Dillon only had 11. That's just not a recipe for success for this Packers team. They need to get the running game going. And their defense played all right, especially when Kirk Cousins was out of the game. They played all right. But it's just really killer for the Vikings, and it's just something you hate to see.
Yeah, I got to assume sitting at 4-4, probably are not in a great spot to go try to get a top 2-3 pick in this draft. I don't think Shedeur is going to declare this season. I assume they're going to go grab a free agent. I don't know who it'll be. Maybe it'll be Carson Wentz. Maybe Joe Flacco. Maybe Matt Ryan. I don't know. Nick Foles. What's Nick Foles doing?
Yeah.
I don't know. But I don't know. Maybe they trade for a guy too. We don't really know at this point. You said Tannehill. That would be a fine option for them, I guess. But it's kind of hard to pack it in when you were starting to look like you were heading in the right direction. And maybe this is the best defense you've had in Kirk's tenure in Minnesota.
Can't overlook Penix too, though, for another quarterback.
Yeah, Penix as well, yeah. And they'd probably be in Penix's range. I could see that. Maybe a little Bo Nix action too. No, I'm kidding. But all right, we will move on here. Speaking of all those former Colts quarterbacks, Saints at Colts. Derek Carr looked a lot better today. He had a couple deep balls that were not overthrown, which is not something you usually see from Derek Carr, at least this season. He's had a lot of overthrows on deep balls, especially to Olave and Rashid Shaheed. He did not have that today. Kind of seems like the injuries have caught up to the Colts on defense, especially in the secondary. It's really banged up. Got guys out there that haven't had much, haven't had a lot of playing time in the NFL. And it's really showed up against a Saints offense that has struggled at times, that did not struggle at all today. On the bright side for the Colts, JT seems to be fully back. He had a good week last week. He had a good week this week. So at the very least, at least you have him there. He would have benefited a lot from having Anthony Richardson playing, but he's still showing that he's one of the best backs in the league after getting paid. And honestly, the biggest story here is the Saints offense was just really, really good against this Colts defense. Like I said, the injuries were a problem for the Colts. But regardless, this is a good sign for the Saints because this is an offense that has a lot of talent on it and has had a lot of talent on it. They went out and they got their quarterback in Derek Carr in the offseason. He has not been great. You have Jameis Winston behind him, who also isn't great, but he's at least fun. Derek Carr isn't really fun, I would say. And overall, I think you need a confidence builder if you're the Saints, if you're Derek Carr, and you kind of got that this week.
Yeah, with the Colts, I was kind of shocked at how much Zach Moss had to do with the offensive game plan this week, especially going into the game with the elbow and heel injuries, especially being a game time decision is what it felt like. And he was getting carries left and right. So I was really impressed with how him and Taylor really have handled this backfield as a whole, even without Anthony Richardson as dynamic of a runner as he is. But on the other side, the Saints, their defense, they started out kind of slow, but then they kind of just clamped down towards the end of the second quarter and the entire second half, to be honest. Derek Carr, he did his job. He did what he had to do. He probably should have had another touchdown, but Olave decided to just let it go right off the dome. So I thought that was kind of funny. But Taysom Hill, I feel like the Colts didn't have too much of an answer for Taysom Hill in this game. He had a couple if he throws, but as a runner, he was very good. 2 touchdowns on the day. And Kamara, once again, just being a receiver, he had 4 catches for 51 yards and a touchdown. I think that touchdown came in the first quarter. And Rashid Shaheed, we've talked about him a few times already. He's the type of player that can take the top off of defense, and he did so 3 times, 3 catches for 153 yards and a touchdown. So that's exactly what you want when you have receivers like Michael Thomas and Chris Olave and Alvin Kamara underneath. So Shaheed really rounds out that group really well. And if Carr can play like he did today, this Saints team can be really interesting in keeping up with Atlanta and I guess if you want to say Tampa Bay, but I don't think too highly of them.
Yeah, I still don't think that highly of this Saints offense. Really, Derek Carr only had to make one read all game, and it was find where Tony Brown was on the field and throw it at him. Tony Brown had no answers for anyone who was put in front of him. He got burned by Olave on the play he dropped. Every time he was up against Michael Thomas, got burned. Raheed Shaheed ran right past him for the touchdown. Olave ran right past him for the big third down late in the game. Really, the first 28 points the Saints had were all on plays that he was involved in. He had a bad unsportsmanlike conduct penalty where he just slapped Taysom Hill. Just bad game. He owned up to it post game, so I respect that, but just has to be better. I don't know why they kept putting him out there. He was obvious that he was a liability. Daryl Baker Jr. is not much better, but maybe he could have at least done something. The injury to Juju Brents has killed him. Dallas Flowers out for the season, obviously. And then Isaiah Rodgers gambled his season away. But on the offensive side of the ball, the Colts, they didn't play bad, especially in the first half. They looked good. Gardner Minshew, he had the interception. In the second half, that was just a bad throw. And they scored 20 plus points again, which they've done in every game so far this year. And Jonathan Taylor, like you guys touched on, was playing incredible in the first half. And then in the second half, he only got 1 carry. So I don't know what the reasoning was to really go away from him. I mean, he had 96 yards on 11 carries and just didn't get the ball. But Zach Moss played great, 66 yards and a touchdown. I like them splitting the backfield, but I would like Taylor to get more touches, especially in the second half when your offense is starting to struggle a little bit. And just on the defensive side of the ball for the Colts, losing Grover Stewart has killed the run game. That was really where Taysom Hill was kind of just running over him. Didn't have answers for him. And the second year, like I said, Tony Brown was just getting shredded by Derek Carr, who had his best game of the season. Solid game from Kamara. Saints defense, they didn't play great, but they played well enough. This injuries have just hurt this Colts team, and I don't know how much they're going to really respond from it if they don't get Juju Brents back or sign another corner in free agency.
Do the Colts pack it in and try to get Marv?
Yeah,
I think you have to, right?
Mhm.
3 and
Or,
5.
I mean, at this point, if you can't get Marv, you just get Keon Coleman.
Yeah.
he's so good too. Both of them.
Or
are
you draft a
just-
DB.
Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be cool. I
Kool-Aid?
just miss Anthony Richardson. That's
Yeah.
especially
But-
after watching Will Levis today.
But I look at the Colts receiving core and like they have dudes.
they
Downs
have
made that
dudes.
big catch today.
Downs is incredible. I love Josh
Downs
Downs.
has definitely been really
Pierce
good.
has been
And
up
then
and down. Pittman is good.
I
Pierce
feel like
had maybe his
Pittman
best
and
game of the season.
Pittman and Downs are definitely the solidified guys. Depending on how you view Pierce, I mean, if you have the chance to take Marvin Harrison Jr. or even Keon Coleman, I'd easily just kick Pierce to the curb and rock with Marvin Harrison Jr. or Keon Coleman easily.
Yeah,
Coleman would
Pierce
have
had
to
a
be a
play.
trade down though if you guys packed it in. Like
I
you're
don't
not
know,
going
his
to take
stock is
Keon
rising.
Coleman at 4.
His stock is rising. Not at 4, no.
That's what
but
I'm saying. If they pack it in and get top 4, top 5, like
yeah, then I think they trade up for.
or you do that.
Right.
See if the Bears want to talk.
Yeah,
I don't think the Bears will want to give up Marvin Harrison Jr. though. They need all the help they
I
can
don't
get.
know. They
Just
gave up
DJ
Jalen
Moore's-
Carter last year.
But Marvin Harrison Jr. doesn't have the off the field issues that Carter had coming into the draft.
Okay, well, that's his dad kind of did, but I'm not going to get into that because I love Marvin Harrison.
The
But Pierce-
Jalen Carter shit didn't happen until pretty close to the draft, so I wouldn't start counting those
Yeah,
chickens.
That's true. Yeah,
Shit can hit the fan quick.
That is true.
I just want to say one thing on Pierce. He's been not great this year, and today was maybe his best game. But there was a big third down in the first half where he had a chance to just keep running and catch the ball, and he could have had a touchdown. And then he just slowed up, and Gardner Minshew had already thrown the ball, and he could have still caught it, but it was a little out of reach, and it really hurt. He's been struggling. I don't think he's really. I think he's an all right receiver, but when you have a chance to get any of the top three receivers in this class, you take them over him any day of the week. And you have to pay Pittman this offseason, so it's going to be interesting to see how they
Already.
navigate that. Yeah,
But well, this year would be his 5th year, right? I mean, they'd pick up his 5th year, right?
I don't know. I don't think they
Who
can pay.
knows?
I don't know if he has a 5th year option.
He what
He
round
was
was
in the
he?
same draft as he was a second rounder.
Yeah, I know he was second round, but now I'm thinking, what year was he
He
drafted?
was like
Because
He was the same
20.
draft as JT, so
so he was
That
we
20.
just paid JT. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
got
interesting.
to get paid.
Yeah, that is interesting. But if that's all you guys got about this one, we can move on here.
Yeah.
All right, moving on here to Pats at Dolphins. The Dolphins get back on track. Biggest thing for me here is Jalen Ramsey comes back and immediately makes a difference. He is going to be huge for this Dolphins team. It's not often in football, unless it's a big receiver or a big quarterback or a huge edge rusher, that you're going to be able to say one player can make a significant difference in a team's chances. But I think Jalen Ramsey and this Dolphins team is significant enough where they go from a good team to a team that is 1,000% in the Super Bowl, no matter what. And I think he's going to do that for them. Tua had his struggle early. He had that bad pick early, but after then, he was dominating. Just deep balls. He was on point. Just he abuses Tyreek Hill like people abuse Tyreek Hill in Madden. It's absolutely ridiculous. This Dolphins team got back on track. They didn't let the Pats, who have been out here upsetting teams, do that. And now the Dolphins are sitting at 6-2 going into the Chiefs game. Chiefs are also sitting at 6-2. That game will be in Germany on Sunday, I believe. Right? That's this week. I'm pretty sure.
I believe that sounds about
Yeah.
right.
Week
Or
coming
it's
up.
the week after, but I
No,
No,
don't know.
I'm pretty
This
sure it's
week.
this week.
Because the week after is the Colts.
Yeah,
Okay,
right,
so
yeah.
it is this week.
But yeah, that game is going to be phenomenal. A couple 6-2 teams. Chiefs are going to be coming off of, I mean, we'll discuss them later, but an embarrassing loss. And the Dolphins bounce back after losing a tough game on Sunday Night Football against the Eagles last week. They go and they beat an inferior team at home. And the Dolphins are legit, man. They're legit.
Yeah, Tua had me nervous to start the game. They had the ball first and then ended up throwing an interception. And then the Patriots went down and made it 7-0. So they dug themselves a hole, but Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and company really just, they're so good. They got themselves out of it. And the Patriots, they really just didn't know how to respond. I don't have much else to say about this game. Like you said, Josh, Jalen Ramsey, he came in, got a pick. Mac Jones, I mean, bad throw. That's all I got to say about that. But yeah, this defense, if they have Xavier Howard and Jalen Ramsey both healthy, this could be a really scary team to play in the playoffs, especially if you're like the Bengals, who your best threats are outside guys in T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. And we've seen it in LA. Ramsey has followed receivers to the inside to the slot to just take them out of the game. And Jamar, he's a guy that the Bengals like throwing inside and stuff like that. So he might be able to just follow him wherever. And that's a scary thing to face if you are seeing the Dolphins on your schedule, because you know if you don't score on offense, that you could fall behind in a game real quick because Tua can just, like you said, Josh, abuse the Madden-like speed that Tyreek Hill has. It's just insane. So, yeah, the London is it Germany? No, it's Germany. It's Germany.
Yep.
Germany,
Munich.
Munich, right? But Miami and KC, I don't know why they threw this so early in the morning. I'm gonna love it
Because
because
it's
I'm
in Europe.
always, well, yeah, obviously, but I don't know why they put this in the Europe slot instead of like a Sunday night or even a 4:25 slot. But I think it's gonna be a phenomenal game. I'm definitely gonna be up for it. So it's gonna be congrats to the Dolphins on getting a stud player back and getting momentum after the tough loss last week.
Yeah, and both of their receivers had a great game. Waddle had 121 yards and a touchdown, and Hill had 112 yards and a touchdown. Dynamic offense. It's really hard to stop them. They fell behind again, or like they did in the Panthers game, but they came back and won. Tua and this Dolphins team really seem to own the Patriots. He's never lost to them. Maybe we got a little bit of a Mahomes Broncos going on, but that changed today. Chase Claypool got a catch in this win, and he finally got a win in the game he played. So good for him. Congratulations. It's been a while for him. And the Patriots running game, I've talked about how they really need to get it going if they want to be successful, and they didn't again, only 77 yards. And then their weapons didn't get much done either. Not that they really have that great of weapons, but Dolphins are just better than them, and they dominated and won.
All right, moving on here then to the Jets and Giants. Big win for the Jets. This game ended up having, I believe it was 24 punts, which was the most in a game
24.
in a long time. I forgot I got it on here somewhere.
2003.
There you go. Beat me to it. 03. So that's 20 years, long time, and a game that not a lot of people really cared about for the most part. Garrett Wilson, though, you mentioned him earlier, Zach. He goes off today. I believe he had 100 yards, which was big for him. Saquon was an absolute workhorse for the Giants. They lose Tyrod to that rib injury. Last I heard, he was in the hospital. I don't know if we've gotten anything else that's come out of that. But and after that, the Giants were basically like, hey, I guess we're just not going to pass anymore. They finished the game with 14 total pass attempts. Saquon was just a complete workhorse, and they were going to win this game for the most part, but 24 seconds is too much time for Zach Wilson. Too much time. Big win for the Jets. And now the Jets are sitting at, 4-3 now? Man, could you imagine?
Yeah,
I'm rooting
4-3.
for them to make the playoffs.
I also am.
Just because that would be insane if Rodgers comes back. That would be insane.
Doing dropbacks today.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
magic, bro. It's magic.
we've talked about it a couple times, but if Zach Wilson is playing well,
Jesus.
what
Justin
happened?
Herbert just got drilled by somebody.
Yeah.
I gotta see this.
He
I know
was-
it's
he
my
was
turn to
talking
go.
TJ
but I want to
Edwards.
see this.
TJ
He
Edwards.
just
Oh my god,
drilled, bro.
that's oh my, oh wow, that was actually nuts.
Rare stop for the Bears.
Yeah,
Not
very
even
rare.
really
They're
a
still
stop.
scoring, yeah,
There's
no,
no
they're
going to
still
field goal.
Yeah.
Wow, but yeah, like you said, Josh, the Giants. This game in general was so sloppy, especially offensively. The Giants, they just force fed Saquon, giving him just an absurdly large amount of carries, 36, I believe. And the Jets, like you mentioned before, Josh, Garrett Wilson had 7 catches for 100 yards, and I believe he had 13 targets. So he caught just over half the balls that were even like intended for him, and he could have had so many more if his quarterback was actually somewhat competent. I don't have much else to say about this game, but I do want to just we talked about it before. If Aaron Rodgers does come back, but Zach Wilson is playing well, who do we see starting at quarterback in the playoffs if we're seeing the Jets in the playoffs?
If
Do we
Rodgers is
see-
healthy, it's Rodgers.
I would like to think so, but if Zach Wilson is like on that, not Rodgers level, but if he's like got the chemistry and you've got a good thing going, like you win 3 or 4 in a row to lead yourself to the playoffs, how hard is it to make that switch to Rodgers? Because I feel like you've got some sort of loyalty, or you just don't want to mess up the mojo that you got going on. That's still a long ways away, but it's definitely something to think about, in my opinion.
I just think it depends. Like, if he's playing like he played today, which was good enough, but there were still 24 punts in this game, I can guarantee Rodgers will get you a better situation than that. If Zach Wilson is going out and throwing for like 250 yards and like a couple touchdowns each game, and he's playing more than just okay, and he's gotten a rhythm, then I think you have a conversation there. But if they're just winning games on defense and he's just being serviceable, Aaron Rodgers is going to be better than serviceable.
Completely agree.
That's how I see it.
Okay. Yeah, this game was as Big Ten as it gets, and I loved it. 23 points on 23 points and 24 punts. That's football right there.
It's Wisconsin, Minnesota right here.
That's Wisconsin, yeah. Zach Wilson, 24-second drive, got the spike off with 1 second left. Game goes to overtime. They forced a punt again. I'm not a fan of kicking the field goal on first down. I think you try to run it and get something. I thought he missed a field goal when I watched it, and but he didn't. It just looked different. Garrett Wilson had a great game. The Giants, this is where I don't understand, and I kind of find it disrespectful that they just decided they wanted to tag Saquon Barkley and not pay him, because they gave him the ball, what was it, 34 times, forced them the ball. I mean, that's a recipe of getting hurt, getting hit that many times, and they just didn't want to pay him, and I don't see them paying him in the offseason the way they roll, but Darren Waller left the game early again, and classic Darren Waller fashion, hamstring injury. And just big win for the Jets, 4-3. They only had 4 players catch a pass. Garrett Wilson led them with 7 catches. Big win, Battle of New York. They got it done on a road game, big road win.
Yeah. I know like the Giants lose their quarterback, obviously, in Tyrod, and then they just give it to Saquon the rest of the game, though. But on this franchise tag, I wouldn't be shocked after today's game to see a phantom ankle injury pop up or something in practice, because that's what I would do. That was complete bullshit. Regardless,
Mhm.
you don't do what you did to him in the offseason and then have a game where you give him the ball 40 times. That's just fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
But that seems like the organization that Giants are. All right, so
Yeah,
we
I
can.
mean, you said it best, Mike. The word you could use for it is just disrespectful. It really is.
Yep. So we'll move on here. All right, moving on here to Jags at Steelers. The Jaguars won today, and they're now sitting at 4-0 since that Texans loss at home in week 3, I believe it was. They got blown out 37-17, and now they have won 4 straight since. Travis Etienne has been phenomenal in the pass game and the run game. He's been everywhere and everything for this team so far. He's been huge for this offense. He has not been hiding whatsoever. Speaking of hiding, Ridley came out of hiding today. Had a few catches, had a good amount of targets. It was good to see number 0 with the ball. I didn't think we were going to see that for a long time, and we have finally made it back to that point. Very sadly, another QB injury today. Kenny Pickett goes down on a blatant bad no call. Earlier on in the game, the Steelers got called for roughing the passer on Trevor Lawrence. This was just as bad, if not worse. It was late. He drove him into the ground with all of his weight. Hurts Kenny Pickett's ribs, and there was no call on that one. That was pretty disturbing to see. Deontay Johnson had a couple bad drops early. It was starting to creep back into Deontay Dropson territory, but he ended up making up for it. He got some catches towards the middle and the end of the game, and was a big part of this offense as a whole. But here we go again. We're back to square one with the Steelers. Just absolutely nothing on offense. Jags defense continues week in, week out, being one of the best defenses in the league, which is the reason that the Jags are now sitting at 6-2 and are definitely in contention as one of the best teams in the AFC. I don't know if I'd have them in my Super Bowl shortlist as of right now, but if they're not in it, they're right outside it.
Yeah, I definitely could make. You could definitely make an argument for them being in that Super Bowl bubble, but like you said, Josh, for me as well, they're just on the outside just because they haven't played their best yet, and the superpowers of the Chiefs, Dolphins, and even the Ravens as of late, they're pretty impressive. But yeah, Steelers, they lost a quarterback, Pickett. I think it was a rib injury, like you said, or if you didn't mention it. But they just have no sentient form of a run game as of now. Najee Harris, he was former first round pick. You really hope that he would turn into like a bell cow back who can maybe catch every once in a while on a 3rd and long to maybe make something out of a screen, but he's not doing too much. I like that they're getting a healthy dose of Jaylen Warren in the game. That's really nice for me to see. But we got to see a little bit of Money Mitch today, but he didn't look too great. But it was nice to see a former Bear out there and just slinging the rock. Got a touchdown in his first full drive, but unfortunately couldn't do much after that. And we can blame the refs for that. I think the Steelers were honestly outclassed today. The Jags, they're a really good team, and the Steelers, they just don't have an offense. They don't have a good system. They don't have the right quarterback manning it, at least not yet. So I'd like to see Pickett in a better system, but until then, I don't think they have many answers for this season.
Yeah, you guys mentioned Kenny Pickett got hurt. Trubisky came in 2 picks, didn't look great. I mentioned in the preview that they need to get the ball to Pickens if they want to win games. They were 4-0 when they got him 75 plus yards, 0-2 when they didn't. And today they didn't get him the ball. He had a catch for a touchdown, but he only had 1 catch for 22 yards. Just didn't give him the ball enough. And then Deontay Johnson after the game blames the refs to say they costed him the game. I'll take any chance I can to slander referees. So yeah, they did cost the Steelers the game. You touched on it. Their run game was non-existent. They really interesting because they've known as a running team for a long time and just can't get anything going on the ground. And then for the Jags, their defense played great again. Trevor Lawrence, he played well. I feel like he's been doing just enough to get him the wins this year. Hasn't done anything extraordinary. Had 292 yards. ETN, he got hurt. He came back in and had the big 52-yard touchdown. And then Evan Engram had a really good game. Was their leading receiver. And we saw Calvin Ridley finally. So good for the Jags. They continue to stack wins and separate themselves in the AFC South.
All right, moving on here then to Falcons at Titans. All I got to say about this game, come on now. Come on now. I got on
You
here.
didn't pick him though. You didn't pick
I got
him.
on here a couple weeks ago, and I said, "How on earth has Will Levis looked as bad in practice where Mike Vrabel is sitting in behind these two bums in Malik Willis and Ryan Tannehill?" He comes in today, proves everyone wrong. You have to understand though, I'm also big on the Falcons, so it's a battle here. But Will Levis goes out there and just dogs 4 touchdowns, a lot of deep balls that were just pretty. And this was the perfect game script for Derrick Henry as well. When they can go and play with a lead, they're going to be solid. Even though their defense is shaky at times, their biggest problem so far this year is they haven't had really anybody to lead this offense. Will Levis shows why that a lot of teams were considering him in that top 5 area. No matter if everyone's saying that was all smoke or not, I still don't. I mean, no one really knows what was going on with that to this point, except for the guys that were making the picks. But yeah, on the other side of the ball for the Falcons, Taylor Heineke ends up coming in. Ritter gets benched. Very interesting. I know it's a road game, so it didn't really matter that they had Ritter in. That's not his specialty. But Heineke played okay for the most part. Nothing great. Hard to come into a game like that and make a big difference. Despite the bad offensive day, I'll say at least the Falcons hung in it for a while. They were kind of just matching whatever score that the Titans were getting, but the Titans held this lead. As for the Titans, I think they're kind of the inverse Chargers. They find ways to just randomly win some games that maybe they're not the better team. I still don't think overall that they're a better team than Atlanta at all, but they just find ways to stumble into wins. Will Levis looks great, and he better start the remainder of the games for the Titans. I swear to God, if they bring Ryan Tannehill back in, I swear.
Yeah, I don't know how you, especially after this performance, Tannehill should not start another game for the Titans if Levis is healthy.
It's over.
Even if Levis has some bad games, he's a rookie. He's going to have those lumps. But today, he looked phenomenal. D-Hop looked like very similar to his former self, which was really nice to see. He had, I think, only 4 catches, but 3 of them were touchdowns, and a couple of them were really pretty balls. Pause. But on the Falcons side of things, they got to get a run game going. I feel like they went away from Bijan a little too early, even though they were down. We talk about it all the time. The Titans, if they're ahead in the game, it's Derrick Henry time. They can just brutally bruise you in the run game and then just hit you over the top with DeAndre Hopkins even. And I know that they were potentially shopping him earlier this week, or just rumors were going around of him maybe being moved before the deadline. But after a game like this, maybe he wants to stick around with Will Levis for a little bit longer and see how things turn out. But going back to the Falcons, I saw something on Twitter in between recordings that they had Jonnu Smith line up in the backfield and throw the ball while their highest drafted tight end in NFL history, Kyle Pitts, was blocking. That is hilarious to me. Arthur Smith doesn't care about, I think you said this, Josh. Arthur Smith does not care about fantasy football, but he doesn't care about winning games either. I don't know which one of you said it, but
I think it was Mike.
It could not be more true. Sorry, Mike. It might have been you. I just don't remember. It's just, it could not be more true. Arthur Smith, he's not a bad coach. It's just, I don't think he's a good one either. But this team is too talented to be losing games to a lesser talented roster. And especially with the weapons they have on offense with Drake London and Kyle Pitts, who just is invisible on half the games he plays because of scheme alone. It's really sad to see.
Yeah, I don't know if you mentioned it, but on the play, they threw it to the tight end 3 too.
Right.
Which is just, it's ridiculous that Kyle Pitts is blocking, and that's not really his thing at all. But I can't stand Arthur Smith, so I'm just going to get past. I think he just hates fantasy football players more than he likes winning. So that's another thing. But Vrabel, I talked about on the preview, he's maybe the greatest coach of all time post bye week, or when he gets his team at least gets 8 days of rest. He's still undefeated. I think he's like 9-0 now with 8 days rest. I've seen a lot of people saying this debut for Will Levis was like Herbert's debut, and I kind of see that. He looked great. He flashed the arm. They should not start Ryan Tannehill for the rest of the season. He shouldn't even dress up for the rest of the season. I think Malik Willis should be the backup for every single game, considering I kind of liked what they did bringing him in for sometimes when they wanted to just do little 3rd and 1 runs. Great game from Derrick Henry. Great game from DeAndre Hopkins. After the game, Hopkins said, just like Geno, they tried to write me off or whatever. I don't know who was writing off DeAndre Hopkins. I think it was more of he decided to go to a Ryan Tannehill quarterback team. So I think it's just mostly his fault. But besides that, you touched on it, Josh. Desmond Ritter benched. He can finally go back to door dashing soon. I bet he's excited. Taylor Heineke gets to come in and be quarterback. I think he played better than Ritter. But Arthur Smith is just so bad at coaching. Drake London sadly got hurt, so he was not in the game late, but they didn't get the ball to really much of their weapons, not much Pitts again. Okay game for Bijan. He got a touchdown, but I really like what you said about the Titans are the anti-Chargers. I just think that's true. Vrabel loves to find ways to win games, even those teams less talented. So good win for the Titans.
Which you gotta respect. And I will say with the Heineke situation, I mean, you've talked about how bad Arthur Smith is as a head coach. The best thing the Falcons can do right now is just let Heineke run it out and let him practice as QB1, get all the first team reps, and then start a game. And I think you'll get better results than if they go out there and they say, hey, all right, Ritter, we'll give you another chance. Let's see it. And then he sucks again, and they have to put Heineke in mid-game again. That's just not a recipe for success. Lucky for them, their next 2 games are Vikings and then at Cardinals. So that's 2 wins there for them, most likely. So they can get right back to 6-4.
That might be Kyler's debut game, and it's a home game.
Yeah, I forgot about Kyler.
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe for that game's up in the air, but they'll probably beat the Vikings, I'd say. Either way, though, I'm just so happy for Will. He deserves this. He was written off, DeAndre Hopkins. Yeah. He was written off draft day. The whole everything with his girlfriend leaving him. I hope she's happy now. Yeah, I hope she is happy.
She can get that TikTok clout.
Yeah, getting the TikTok clout. Meanwhile, Will Levis throwing 4 touchdowns in an NFL game. But shout out D-Hop though, because it is so crucial for a young receiver to have a young quarterback to have a veteran wide receiver that's as good as DeAndre Hopkins. That makes his life easier. And I just love to see that from Will. I think he can definitely become a solid quarterback in this league. And now the AFC South is just bunch of young QBs. We finally got that old bum out of there in Ryan Tannehill, hopefully. But
I thought you were talking about Matt Ryan for a second there.
Wow. No. That old bum's been gone for a while.
Yeah, the AFC South. It was very a lot of bad talk about it going into the season and last year especially, but a lot of young quarterbacks. It's going to be a interesting division for the foreseeable future if all these guys can stay healthy.
I agree. But moving on here, let's see. Eagles at Commanders. Washington came out hot in this game, as they tend to against Philly, it seems, over the past couple of years. They took a lead in the first half early. Hurts on a bum leg. We don't really know what's going on with his knee. I don't know why, but it feels like over the past 3 or 4 years, just in sports in general, I feel like we're just hearing less and less information about these injuries to stars, where nobody in the organization even feels semi-responsible to disclose anything. So we don't know what's going on here with Jalen Hurts. Kind of sucks as a fan to not know what's going on with your players. You'll get times where a guy is day to day and then he ends up missing weeks and weeks, just in any sport. And I understand not giving that information up, but at the same time, as a fan, it sucks and it's very, very annoying to follow. But yeah, we don't know what's going on with him, but he goes out there and throws for 300, 4 touchdowns, 0 picks today. So that's great for him. AJ Brown overtakes Calvin Johnson's record for most games of 125 yards in a row. I believe this was number 6. He's an absolute freak. And I think it's him and Jefferson for 1A, 1B at this point. No question.
No Tyreek?
Tyreek too, but I don't know.
I feel like you can't even go you just got to go tiers at that point.
Yeah, the top wide receivers is because I would entertain an argument probably for good 3, 4, 5 guys maybe.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
You got to entertain an argument for those 2, Tyreek, Devontae probably still.
Yeah, and Jefferson,
Chase, I guess. Yeah, the Sun God.
Davis Jones Jr.
We're just talking catches.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
We'll get
Jones Jr.
Well, I think we'll get to Velus Jones Jr. in a bit. That was
that was
infuriating. But
just cut him.
Yeah.
I don't.
Honestly, he's so old he might retire. But
Yeah.
but going back to the Eagles here, they were not really running it well today, but they were able to adapt, and I think that was really big. We haven't seen a ton anything crazy really out of Jalen Hurts so far this season. They've really been able to run the ball, and there's going to be times where this team isn't going to be able to run the ball. That was that is what happened today, and they were able to bounce back. Jalen Hurts, like I said, was phenomenal. Washington's defense continues to just have a ton of stars and then be really good and then really bad and then really good and then really bad. Chase Young's been sneakily one of the best pass rushers in the NFL this year. Sweat has been solid as well. Apparently, they're shopping both of them, looking for like a second or third round pick.
They're both
Brad
bears.
Hope,
Just Sweat.
it's just Sweat.
That's what I'm hearing.
Oh,
That's what
well,
it
Per sources, just trust me, bro.
yeah,
exactly.
well, I hope they do get traded. As someone who was devastated when the Lions had to end up taking a Akuda in that draft, I would love to see it come full circle and have Chase Young. But we'll see where those guys end up. This Washington defense has been up and down, like I said, with all these big names. And yeah, the Eagles, they end up getting a win, little comeback win. All these division games are going to be tough, especially in this division. But yeah, Eagles move on, get another W.
Yeah, this is the Eagles offense that we've been waiting to see all season, kind of at their full strength, if I had to imagine, given the defensive line, the talent that they have up front that they were facing. Uh, I was pleasantly surprised with how they ran the ball. It was a little underwhelming in terms of the total yardage side of things, but they won the game, so I have nothing to complain about. The only blunder that they really had was the brotherly shove, tush push, or whatever from the 1 yard line that Hurts ended up fumbling on. But outside of that, I saw no mistakes out of the Eagles. Devonta Smith kind of broke out. He was 1 yard away from triple digits, I believe, for the first time this season, which he's still kind of waiting to eclipse that. But
AJ Brown's
Swift
taking
got
all his
him.
yards.
Yeah, I mean AJ Brown, like you said, Josh, you could throw him up there with the best of the best. He just needed to get away from Tannehill, and that's just the funniest thing in the world to honestly everybody that they really just traded him for Traylon Burks. But we don't have to talk about that anymore. AJ Brown's phenomenal. I love that they were just Hurts was getting the ball to everybody. He really was, and especially just he didn't turn it over in the air like he did against the. Did they play? They played Miami last week, right?
Eagles, yeah.
Yeah, and then the week before they played the Jets, where he did turn it over 4 times. So 2 games in a row where he's taking care of the ball. This is the Hurts that I like to see, and this is the Eagles team that if their pass rush can start to generate a little bit of pressure and make things easier on their secondary, this team can once again be contending in the NFC along with the Lions and Cowboys and Niners, I guess. But it's hard to say given what we've seen from the Niners recently. But we'll get to them in a little bit.
Yeah, just to touch on the injury thing Josh was talking about, I just hope it doesn't get to like hockey where they don't announce, they just say what the injury is and really don't give a
That's what I'm
timetable.
saying. I think that's where we're
Right.
starting to head.
I hope it doesn't get to that because
Lower
that is
body injury?
so annoying. Yeah,
Oh my god.
that is so annoying. And prayers to the dude's family, Adam Johnson, who passed away in that freak accident in hockey. That was really just sad. But back to football. Sam Howell, he played very good against this Eagles secondary, 397 yards, 4 touchdowns. The trade didn't really help him. And big game, hopefully a breakout game now for Jahan Dotson. We've been talking about them not getting him the ball and him struggling with some drops. He had 108 yards and a touchdown today. And so did Terry, had a great game with a touchdown and 62 yards. So hopefully those two can continue to play well against teams other than this struggling Eagles secondary. But really the big story of the season so far continues to be AJ Brown. There's a lot of talk about how he was just a big play guy. He wasn't really he couldn't sustain what he was doing, and he's really sustained it this year with 6 straight games of 125 plus yards. And today he added 2 touchdowns, and the one was the one-handed where he brought it back to his body. He's really one of the best players in all of football, and it's just definitely in the top tier of receivers at this point. Devontae Smith, his partner in crime, also had a great game, 99 yards. And Julio Jones got his first touchdown for the Eagles in a big moment this year. Big win for him. The tush push was stopped, and then they adapted and did the handoff to DeAndre Swift, which got him a touchdown. So this team can adapt. They did have some injuries today that are something to look at. Jalen Carter got hurt. Jordan Davis got hurt. And Milton Williams. That's 3 of their defensive tackles. all got hurt and I don't think returned to the game. So hopefully those guys can get healthy and help Fletcher Cox. But big game for the Eagles next week too. We talked about it with the Cowboys. That's going to be a fun game. Sad it's only a 3 o'clock game. Usually those are always Sunday Night Football. So
Yeah, who got Sunday night?
I don't know.
Next
but,
week, Bills Bengals.
Oh, okay,
well,
so we got some games next week, man.
yeah.
Yeah, that's
we
definitely
got
a
some
lot of good
games
games.
next
What's
week.
Monday night then? Fuck.
Monday
I
night
don't know.
is Chargers Jets, which would have been good, but
Yeah.
that still could be because Wilson and Herbert, who can play on the same level at times. So
Got only 4 teams on bye, so what's that? 14 games then we got next week. All right,
And then
moving on here then. Browns at Seahawks. Geno Smith. I said before in the preview, I said if Geno Smith is careful with the ball, I think Seattle's winning. He was not careful with the ball, and they won anyways. They tend to, like we've said on here a million times, play down to their opponent. The Browns are not an opponent you really play down to, but in the situation with a backup quarterback, I think you can say that. The Seahawks ran it well enough to win this game. They were at home. I feel like they played so many home games already. So I got to imagine they have a big road trip coming up or something. But the Browns, on the other hand, they continue to stay in every game with their backup quarterback in. Even though Deshaun has not been great when he was on the field this season, it is kind of a shitty situation for them having such a good defense and having just so many problems at the quarterback position. So I think you got to give them credit. They're still sitting at over 500. And the Seahawks are now 5-2, which would put them above the Niners in first place in the NFC West, which is wild. Above the Niners, tied with the Lions. They should be, that would be tied for second then, I believe, in the NFC, right below the 7-1 Eagles. So that's big for them. And they have and it's not even really tied because they have that win over the Lions. So they are in second in the NFC, and that's just crazy at this point. But shout out the Eagles or the Seahawks. They're getting wins.
yeah, the Browns, their defense did everything they could to keep their team in it, but Philip Walker was just two interceptions, couldn't really get it done. Kareem Hunt did find the end zone though for the second straight game, which is nice to see back in a Browns uniform. Jerome Ford, he did have that injury, and it was sort of looking like he was earlier this week. It was sort of looking like he wasn't going to play, but he came in and just all of a sudden just he gave it a go in warmups, and he was all good to go. Amari Cooper, he started getting his first set of like actual targets from the backup quarterback position. Outside of that, the Browns didn't really impress too much. The defense, they did all right, but like you talked about, Josh, Geno and the rest of this Seahawks offense, they got a lot of weapons, and they took advantage. JSN found the end zone with, I believe, 30 seconds left to put them ahead, and Browns couldn't do anything. Not enough time. They didn't have Zach Wilson on the field, so they couldn't go down and score. Kenneth Walker feels like for the first time in forever he didn't find the end zone in this game, and it felt like that after that first run that he broke off for like 40 plus yards, I think it was. I thought it was going to be a good game for him, but he ended up just kind of having a relatively quiet day, but a good day as a what's it called? All in all. Tyler Lockett, DK, JSN, they all did their thing. I like the trio. They're very solid. I wish Geno would be a little bit more careful with the ball and start distributing a little bit better. But Seahawks got the win, like you said, Josh, 5-2. That's something that I honestly, it's something that you can believe and can't believe at the same time. But I'm looking forward to see where they go from here.
Yeah, we touched on the Seahawks run game. It was going well, but they didn't really stick with it. They only had 13 total carries. I thought they should have stuck with it more. Um, they're in sole position of the NFC West. Geno didn't play great, and they still were able to get the win. He was able to play just better than PJ Walker, and just able to steal a win. And they just find ways to win too. The refs weren't able to save the Browns today and win them the game. PJ Walker didn't play great. Under 50% passing, 248 yards, 2 picks, and 1 touchdown. They had 2 players with 10 plus carries and 1 with 9. So they're really spreading out the carries today. And Amari Cooper, he had a solid game. He finally was able to kind of get on the right page with PJ Walker. And Myles Garrett got a sack on Halloween, which is his favorite holiday, I guess. So Browns really wanted to find a way to win this game. They should have, but the Seahawks were able to steal it with the late touchdown. Browns, this division's getting close. Ravens have the lead now, but it's going to be close to fun to see for the rest of the year.
Yep, and we'll move on over here to the Bengals and the Niners, two teams in those two respective divisions, which now have some controversy of who's going to be at the top. The 49ers now win their third game or lose their third game in a row, excuse me, first time since 2021. I just want to say on the record, I think I said 3 weeks ago now, the Niners are going to go 11-0. They're 0-3 since I said that.
Oh,
So absolutely
11?
brutal. What?
Maybe they go 11 though.
That'd be wild. That would almost be better than me predicting them actually going 11-0. But Brock Purdy has just been really bad in this time here. I believe his touchdown interception was like 3-5 over this over these past three losses here. Cincinnati, on the other hand, gets back on their horse and they're over 500 now. They're sitting at 4-3 with the Browns as well. You got the Ravens, who are now sitting at 6-2, I believe, and then the Steelers are 4-3 or something like that. But really close division with those teams all 4-3. The defense forces 3 turnovers for the Bengals, which is huge for them. Joe Burrow has really starting to come into his own. He looks like he's healthy now. He ran for 43 yards today on that calf, so that's great for him. And we all know that the Bengals are just a really fun team to watch when they're healthy and they're playing good football. And now it seems like they are. They're on one of these, and the Bills are on one of these. So it's going to be interesting to see those pass cross on Sunday Night Football next week. One of many games that should be a good game. When you looked it up, where are they at? Did you see? Is it in Buffalo or Cincinnati? Because if it's in Buffalo,
I'm trying to remember. I believe it is in Cincinnati.
well, that's a DeMar Hamlin game.
It's in Cincinnati.
I
Yeah.
didn't even think about
Cincinnati.
that. That's a DeMar Hamlin game.
Oh, well.
So that'll be interesting to actually see that game take place in the regular season there in Cincinnati. But yeah, shout out the Bengals. They're in the race for this division now. They have to play a little bit of catch up, but as the Browns have their backup quarterback situation, the Steelers have their backup quarterback situation. It's wide open for them. The Niners, on the other hand, Brock Purdy has to figure it out, man. You can't. I don't know how many more games they could drop before it starts becoming an actual worry for them. I just wanted to see here who their next game is coming up.
I know they've got the bye next week, so
Yeah, they have the bye next
definitely-
week, and then they have in Jacksonville, and then the
Ooh.
Buccaneers come to town, and oh my God! All right, their next 5 in Jacksonville, Buccaneers come to San Fran, then in Seattle, in Philly, and then Seahawks come to San Fran. So outside of that Bucs game, that's 4 tough games for them, and they're sitting at 5-3 now. So if you're a Niners fan, buckle up. You're gonna have to start winning games against good teams coming up here, but we'll see. What a turn of events since that Cowboys game on Sunday Night Football.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with the Niners since we're kind of there already. This bye week could not come at a more perfect time. They get a chance to get Debo healthy, Trent Williams healthy, Brock Purdy healthy because he was in concussion protocol prior to this week. I know there was some controversy among NFL Twitter with the whole like, oh, he's the only guy so far this year to be cleared within the same week he got injured in.
Besides Mo Cox.
Oh, Mo Cox too. But quarterback, it's a little different because you got to do other things with the brain. But Purdy, he doesn't look like himself. The last few games, he hasn't looked like the Purdy we've seen, the one who was 11-0 in non-UCL destroying games. He was off the last few games, especially this one. It's hard to keep up with a high-powered offense like the Bengals, who I believe had their best statistical running game the entire season against a 49ers front that is very physically imposing and has been the entire year. I was very impressed by that. Joe Mixon, 16 carries for 87 yards and a touchdown. And then Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase just out there for the world to see. 10 catches for 100 yards and a touchdown. I think he got a carry or 2 as well, but that didn't really go too well. But Joe Burrow, I believe he completed just under 88% of his passes. He was 28 of 32 for 283 yards and 3 touchdowns. If Joe Burrow, like you mentioned, Josh, if he's healthy, he's able to move around in that pocket. He had a play in the first half where he evaded like 3 sacks, where each guy, it seemed like they had him just dead to rights. He ended up making a play out of it, and I don't even know if they got a first down, but he prevented it from being a loss, which was insane. And if they can continue to get T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, and of course Jamar Chase involved early and often, that opens up the running game. That opens up hell even the QB draw game that we saw Burrow rock a couple of those for second and third down plays. This team could be scary, and especially like you mentioned, Josh, the Bills are kind of on that downward trajectory with how they've beaten those inferior opponents as of late, and the Bengals, I think they've won 4 in a row because they started 0-3, and we were thinking, hey, do you hit the panic button? Do we start getting worried? I don't think I ever fully hit that panic button. I think I was still on like the let's wait and see until Burrow's fully healthy and see this team fully develop. But we're seeing it now. They are a very good team. I do want to voice my concern for Trey Hendrickson. I don't know if he came back from that ankle injury that he suffered in the game, but if he did not come back, that's definitely something to pay attention to this week with a super important game against a very good quarterback in Josh Allen next week. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on. But outside of that, I think, yeah, that's it for me.
Yeah, I feel like this is almost kind of a similar storyline going into the Bills Bengals game last year. I feel like the Bills were on a high going in, and the Bengals were starting to sputter a little bit. But this game, Bengals, I expected them to really go in this game and play well, and they did. Their defense played solid. Joe Burrow played incredible. Mixon had maybe his best game of the year, and both Jamar Chase and T. Higgins played great. So big game for the Bengals. They're really starting to catch their stride. Burrow's been looking very better these last couple weeks. And for the 49ers, Purdy was in concussion protocol all week. Was one of the only players to pass it in a week. And I feel like he played all right. It's just the turnovers continue to haunt him. They've haunted him these last couple weeks. And sometimes when these quarterbacks get in turnover spurts, they struggle to get out of them. We've seen Dak Prescott in it for a long time. He's just got to find a way to be more conservative with the ball and limit the turnovers. But he was also their leading rusher today. They couldn't get much going on the ground with McCaffrey. And McCaffrey was able to get the touchdown to keep his consecutive streak alive. I think it's at 16 now. So good for him. 49ers only had 4 pass catchers today, too. And Kittle's really become their lead guy with Deebo out now. Had another great game. We're seeing what we expected from the Bengals all year. They're finally clicking. Hope they can continue that. And the 49ers, they have to find out quick because second in division now. They get 2 games with the Seahawks coming up, but they got to find it. And perfect time for the bye.
Yep. Moving on here, Ravens at Cardinals. The Ravens offense was actually pretty underwhelming today. Outside of their first drive, they had a really good drive, and their last drive was really good. Outside of that, they kind of struggled. A lot of punts, didn't move the ball very well at all. The Cardinals keep hanging in and losing these games. They now are tied, like I said, for that first overall pick, and they should be getting Kyler back next week or the week after. So that'll be very interesting to see how he comes off of that ACL injury. If he could kind of dig this team out of a little bit of a hole, end up being a decent team. I don't know. I mean, there's no chance at this point that he could dig them out and get them to the playoffs. But yeah, the Dobbs experience has run its course in Arizona. I think they've realized that time is dwindling, and he had no chance to get them W's. But at the end of the day, I don't know if you wanted a W if you're in the Cardinals front office. So maybe that was the whole plan all along. But Ravens go in there, playing well all game for the most part, end up not covering late, kind of brutal there. But they, I guess they play okay. Kind of underwhelming coming off of dominating one of the best teams in the league in the Lions last week to coming in here and kind of letting the Cardinals hang in with you for the most part. But we'll see. Moving forward, I think they're just going to probably play up to their good opponents and maybe coast a little bit with these lower ends.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have much to say about this game, but the Cardinals made it kind of dicey at the end. They ended up recovering that onside kick and then going down to score that touchdown. And then I was thinking, hey, if they got Aguilar on the hands team again, I think this game's still winnable if you're Arizona. But he charged the ball and actually caught it on the fly instead of being a dumbass and letting it drop in front of him. But Lamar, we didn't see MVP Lamar today, but we saw game manager Lamar who did just enough and didn't make mistakes. And that's against a team like Arizona. That's all you need. The defense did their job. They held them to, I think, 7 points through the first 3 quarters, which is whatever team you're facing. That's phenomenal defense, given how offense is supposed to be played in the league nowadays and how easy it is given the rules and penalties and stuff like that. So I'll always be impressed with a good defensive performance, especially being a Bears fan. But the Cardinals, on the other hand, yeah, Josh Dobbs, time's up, buddy. Time to get Kyler in there, get him healthy. I think this Cardinals team may steal a couple games if Kyler is starting, and I think that is phenomenal news as a Bears fan for draft position. So especially given that the Panthers won today, damn them for that. But I don't have much else to say about this one. But Ravens, I don't remember their schedule off the top of my head, but I think I mentioned that this game could be one that you could overlook, and they almost did, but they pulled it out.
Yeah, Lamar didn't play great, but he limited the turnovers, did what he needed to do, won him the game. It wasn't really ever a doubt. The onside kick really made it closer than it seemed. That was the first onside kick I've seen recovered in a while, so that was cool. Gus Edwards had a great game, 80 yards, 3 touchdowns. Is he the one that's fourth in like the Ravens all-time rushing yards? Yeah.
Yes.
So that's just a crazy stat. The Cardinals, they did a good job keeping those Ravens weapons in check. They didn't have too much going on. And for the Cardinals, next week, Kyler Murray's not expected to play, so it will be Josh Dobbs for one more week, probably trying to squeeze in one more loss no matter what, and let the fans focus on the Diamondbacks playing in the World Series. So shout out the Diamondbacks. Refs did help the Cardinals lose this game by just pushing the ball back and basically giving the Ravens the fourth down or whatever on that. Just refs deciding games again. Big game from Trey McBride, big tight end, 10 catches for 95 yards. Shout out to him. The game was really closer than it kind of appeared to be, but Ravens, they won the game. They should have played better and won by more, but they won the game. That's all they needed to do. So good one.
So moving on here to Chiefs at Broncos. What an insane loss for Kansas City here. The Chiefs' random offensive struggles kind of return here. They've had a couple points this season where they've kind of just looked a little bit lost on offense. They've had times where they look like their old Chiefs selves. So it's kind of weird to see them go up and down. For a team that's for sure going to be in the playoffs and wants to make a long run, you can't have these kind of games when the playoffs roll around. The winning streak for the Chiefs against the Broncos ends at 16. Mahomes loses his first road game against a division opponent here in the Broncos. At the end of the day, it was the 5 turnovers for the Chiefs that were just really crucial to this loss. A couple of them came late, or one of them came late, which is kind of a freebie from Mahomes. But yeah, if you're the Chiefs, I think you got to look at this game and just kind of throw it out because you don't want to. You don't want to even think about this going into next week. You have a big game next week. I don't expect, no matter how decent the Dolphins have been and how underwhelming the Chiefs have been as of recent, I think you cannot count the Chiefs out at all against Miami. I think you have to expect them to go in there and put a good effort out there. I don't think they're going to get blown out. I don't think it's not going to be a good game. I think it's going to be a really close game. Chiefs are coming off of now a second half where they got completely shut out by a not very good Broncos defense that has somehow kind of pulled a couple of good defensive performances out of their ass over the past couple of weeks. But yeah, maybe are you guys worried about Mahomes? I mean, I'm not worried about Mahomes, but this has definitely not been to his standards of a season so far.
I mean, I could get into that in a little bit, but from this game, I've noticed 2 major things, and they both have to do with the Chiefs. One, if they don't have a healthy Patrick Mahomes or Mahomes at all, they are going to go nowhere in the postseason or just in life. And 2, the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, and Travis Kelce especially needs Taylor Swift in attendance. Travis Kelce, he was, I don't want to say a shell of himself, but he was definitely on the lackluster side in terms of impact on this game. And T Swift was not in attendance. So I think Andy Reid and the entire Chiefs front office got to get on the phone, try and postpone that New Eras tour, and just bring her with. Just keep her a part of the essential personnel within that team. But in all seriousness, I don't know what to think of Mahomes right now. This is definitely a lackluster season for his standards. He's still having a great year for just an average quarterback, but for Mahomes, someone we've seen in his first ever full year starting, throw for 5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns, he's definitely on the slower side of things. Granted, I I think a lot of this has to do with Bieniemy. It's losing him, I think, is going to be a way bigger loss than people are going to realize. And we're going to see that come like December, January, maybe even February if they make it all the way to the big game. But based on how we saw them in this game and the inconsistencies, like you mentioned, Josh, those random games where their offense just goes missing. Their defense did good enough, but like you said, those 5 turnovers definitely did not help. They got to get a run game going. Isaiah Pacheco, he was okay, but he just didn't get the rock enough, especially on the ground. So you got any quarterback who isn't at 100% like Mahomes was, because I think he was dealing with whatever illness he had that they mentioned earlier today or yesterday or something that threw him on the injury report last minute. I don't think he was at 100% today. If he is, I think this game probably goes different, but who knows? Unfortunately, they get their first loss as official Swifties, and yeah, they got a tough one next week against the Dolphins.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm worried about Mahomes. I'm more worried about his weapons. He did go into this game. I guess he had the flu, and you're playing in a cold weather game in Denver. I was really hoping for some snow on the field. There really wasn't any, so that was a bummer. Um, I think Mahomes is gonna find it. I think he just has to really get in a rhythm with these receivers because again, he just wasn't able to get on the same track as his receivers. He was able to get the ball to Kelsey, but if a team is able to get Kelsey out of the game, these other receivers, we haven't seen a single one of them step up really so far this year. Mecole Hardman, hopefully he gets back in their offense and gets the ball more. I was expecting more from him this week, but really not much. Their defense played all right, but the offense just wasn't able to give them any help. Only 9 points. They snapped a 16-game losing streak, so good for them. They had to have been due after losing 16 straight games. So I guess, but Pacheco, I was really expecting a big game from him. Only had 40 yards, so that disappointed me. But the whole Chiefs offense really did. Broncos, they did enough to win, like I said, and Russell Wilson had a solid game. Didn't have that many yards, but 3 touchdowns, no picks, and a good game from Javonte Williams with 85 yards. So good for him. Judy got his first touchdown of the year, maybe his last touchdown as a Bronco going into the trade deadline. So something to keep an eye on. Nice win for the Broncos. I don't know if they really wanted to win at this point, but I guess you got to be happy to snap a 16-game losing streak
Yeah.
versus a guy.
I think if there's a win you're going to be happy about, it's got to be this one for sure. But moving on here to our final game of the night, Sunday Night Football, Chargers beat the Bears. The Chargers were really great tonight. They didn't play with their food like they tend to. They were as far from the Chargers as we've seen them be tonight, probably. They score on their first 5 drives on offense, 6 of their first 7, to get that 30-point cushion or 30 points and feel good about the rest of this game. Tough night for Tyson Bagent. Had a good amount of yards, though, no touchdowns, 2 picks. The Bears' run game was never really there. Neither was the Chargers, to be honest, but that didn't seem to matter because Herbert was great, had basically 300 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Austin Eckler really makes his full return, only 29 rushing yards on 15 carries, which is pretty poor. But in the receiving game, he was their leading receiver, 7 catches, 94 yards, a touchdown on 8 targets. He was very efficient tonight. And overall, I think this is a huge win for the Chargers. This is a game where you can go out there and let the Bears hang in there, possibly lose a game at home to an inferior team. And they didn't do that tonight. Now they move their way up to 3-4. Luckily for them, the Raiders have not played yet, but like we just talked about, the Broncos won, the Chiefs lost, so that's a big step in the right direction for them. I believe they're sitting at 2.5 games back now of the Chiefs, so they're working to get back from that, working to maybe get to 500 next week. They play the Jets, right?
Yeah,
We were just
on
talking
Monday
about that.
night.
They play the Jets on Monday night, so big game for them. They get another full week of rest, and just shout out the Chargers for not charging, I guess.
Well, I really don't know where to start. I guess I'll just start at the top. The coaching, absolutely horrendous. Yet another game where you just seem so unprepared for the other team's game plan, especially defensively. You see Austin Eckler getting catches underneath when you're running zone coverage, and you have no one near him to go and wrap him up. And when you finally do, you miss a tackle and he takes it for a touchdown. And then when you start running man coverage, guys like Keenan Allen and Quentin Johnson, who's not known for just beating man coverage with just shorter routes, he's beating on your rookie, second round corner, just absolutely making him look foolish, forcing him into a couple penalties too. It was an ugly game all in all from Chicago, but with a backup quarterback who got a game of film on him, team has time to prepare. That you're going to get some of those, but luckily, depending on how you want to word it, luckily Bears are getting Fields back next week, or that's the look that they're thinking of getting him back with the dislocated thumb. He's targeting that to come back, but you got to fire everybody like by tomorrow. You just have to. Like maybe even polls. I don't even know. Hopefully Kevin Warren just like has some sort of grasp on the situation where something here isn't working. And the whole Tyson Bagent story was, oh, that was cute and whatever. But all right, look, he's not going to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. Sure, he could be a very successful QB2 on a team. I hope he stays with us and we can develop him into a nice QB2. But he's not going to be a QB1. But play calling, once again, just absolutely atrocious. You uncork it first play of the game. Darnell Mooney, beautiful catch, defensive pass interference. Wasn't touched when he was on the ground. And then they blew it dead for some reason. So that cost them another 15 yards. And then I'm trying to remember the intentional grounding that wasn't intentional grounding, apparently, even though Eckler wasn't even close to in the area. He was blocking for Herbert. They didn't even bother calling that. And then they converted on a first down the next play. It was atrocious. And then DJ Moore, only 4 catches against the 32nd ranked secondary in terms of pass defense coming into the week. Only 4 catches for DJ Moore, and it's not because he dropped any. It's you're not targeting your best player enough, and it just makes no sense to me that you just seem to phase him out of the game plan when he's far and away your best player. It just makes no sense to me. Getsy should be. I tweeted this out. Flus should be fired because he sucks. Getsy should be neutered because there's no way we should have another little Getsy running around and just ruining the world because of how fucking stupid he is. It's just it's absurd. I hate everything, but I don't know.
Did I catch you saying you think polls should
Maybe
go?
maybe polls because I mean,
Polls.
if he does nothing,
Finally
if he does
breaking the ice.
nothing, he needs to trade for either Chase Young or Montez Sweat at the trade deadline, especially if the Commanders are just effectively shopping them, because this team has a need at edge, and I think Chase Young, if you can get him for a third or hell, throw them 2/3, I don't care. If you can get Chase Young, you have to, because like you said earlier, Josh, he's one of the best edge rushers in the league this season.
I'd trade a second for him easily.
I would love to, but considering our second's going to be probably in the mid-30s.
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't know how.
Don't want to do that.
You already tried that with Claypool.
Right. I don't know. I don't know how willing I would be to
Holes isn't afraid though.
trade an early
He's
second
not.
rounder for another guy with the name Chase.
So
I don't know.
Yeah, they kept cutting the polls all night. They were cutting to him.
Yeah, I
They kept
mean,
to Kevin Warren too.
Yeah.
they should. He's the next man up. He's got to step up and do his job. I think the Bears, if they get Fields back next week and they have him for the rest of the season, I hope they do, because I would like to get a proper evaluation. That's honestly all you have, just the next 9 games to evaluate him. If he's it, great. That's one less need. If not, you got to cut ties as soon as possible with the coaching staff, with him, and just go Caleb Williams or Drake May with 1 or 2, depending on where you end up.
Yeah, I didn't think Tyson Bagent played that bad. Turnovers weren't great, but I've seen worse from a Bears quarterback. Saw a stat. This Bears defense, it's just not good. There's really no going around it. The last 5 wins, the quarterbacks that they've played is Trey Lance, David Mills, Mac Jones, Sam Howell, and Brian Hoyer. Not a good list. So
Trey Lance.
not what you want to see. The Chargers did what they should be doing against inferior teams. They get the win done. They don't charger. They don't mess around. They just dominate and win. Josh Palmer got hurt. I don't know if he returned. I hope he's okay, because
I think he
really
came back.
He did okay, because
Yeah.
he's really stepped into that wide receiver 2 role. It's interesting to see how quickly you've switched on Tyson Bagent now, Hawk.
I'm not even switching on him. I was never high on him to begin with. I said for what
I mean, you
did
picked him
last
to win
week-
this week.
Yeah, because I was just fuck it. I mean, the Bears have nothing to lose. That was my exact reasoning.
They had nothing to lose, but they did sadly lose.
But the game,
So,
yeah.
the game is the game.
I think we all know that even if they won the game, they're not going to make some crazy playoff push or anything. So yeah, they had nothing to lose.
Yeah. Good week of football though. 12 of the 14 games were within 1 score in the fourth quarter.
Not
Sorry,
this
Sunday
one.
night football game wasn't one of them. Could have been worse though. don't know if you guys saw the Week 10 primetime games. Bears are one of them versus the Panthers.
That'll be a good one because they're both shitty.
I
Yeah,
think
but
I don't know if I don't know how to
then
go one.
Sunday night Jets Raiders that week, and Monday night Broncos Bills. So dreading Week 10 a little bit at this point.
Jesus, man.
Rough game of prime times, but
Yeah.
Bears, the defense didn't play well. TJ Edwards, I feel like, had a very bad game, missed a couple tackles. Tyreek Stevenson had a couple pass interferences. Just not what you wanted to see. Matt Eberflus, he's got to go for the season. Luke Getsy's got to go. Obviously,
Who got hurt on defense for the Bears in the second half?
Was it
Tremaine
Tremaine
Edmonds.
It
yeah,
was
he hurt-
Edmonds?
He hurt his knee, and then I think Gervon Dexter was kind of shaken up, but he came back in and played.
I'd
later.
take it. Edmonds did not return.
Oof. I don't.
I
think
saw-
he
I
did,
saw
but
them doing,
I saw
like,
him
on the
on
bike.
I saw him
He
on
was
the
on
bike.
the bike.
Oh,
But
okay.
I don't remember him coming back in. I think it was just they were running primarily nickel after that, and it was just Edwards and Sanborn just rocking with that.
I just saw they were doing the classic TV like pan to all the players taking knees around the thing, even though
Yeah,
they have
it
no
looked
idea.
bad because he was just
Yeah.
laying on top of Dexter, and I was like, "Ain't no way." It was like right after we started recording too, so I was like, it scared me a little bit. But
Yeah. Bears got to get the ball to DJ Moore, and they didn't do that today. So just disappointing if you're a Bears fan.
oh, really?
All right. Well, I think that about does it for the week 8 recap here. We had to move along these games. 15 games. There was a lot of stuff we had to get through today. Just to preview next episode, we will be talking about this past week in college football. We will be talking about this Monday Night Football game that will be taking place tomorrow. We do have our first ever special guest coming on for that episode. One of our buddies who is a Raiders fan, and I'm obviously a Lions fan, so we will be talking about Monday Night Football. He'll be on for that part of the episode. We'll also get on to Week 9 NFL preview, and then I guess if anything crazy happens in the next couple days in the NBA world, we'll touch on that as well.
Trade deadline as well.
Yep, and trade deadline.
Right.
Yeah,
That's gonna. what
and
is
we
it?
will be
I looked it
recording
up.
post deadline. So
4 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday.
Yeah.
We will be recording roughly
Around-
I don't know,
yeah, probably 7 or
anywhere
something.
between 6 or 8. So we will have all that information ready.
yes, we will. So we will be covering that as well. In the meantime, don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you get notified whenever we drop a new video. Follow all of our socials in the description, and we will see everyone in the next one.